The giant spaceship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. It came without warning, sliding past Earth's moon like a silver needle through dark cloth. The world's governments scrambled to respond, but before they could act, screens everywhere lit up with the same message: "We come in peace." Maria Collins was drinking her morning coffee in her lab at the National Physics Center when the news broke. Unlike many others who panicked, she studied the ship's movement with growing excitement. The way it moved showed it was using principles similar to her research in quantum physics. "This can't be a coincidence," she said to herself, quickly pulling up her latest work on her computer. The alien ship seemed to bend space in exactly the way her equations had predicted. Her hand shook as she typed up a quick summary of her findings. The aliens called themselves the Altarians, and they represented something called the Galactic Confederation. They landed their smaller ships in every major city on Earth. Their leader, a tall blue-skinned being named Zextal, met with Earth's representatives in New York. "Your species is quite interesting," Zextal said, looking around the UN building with what seemed like boredom. "Though primitive by our standards, we have come to officially document your civilization and offer limited trading rights." The room full of world leaders stayed quiet. Some looked angry, others worried. But before anyone could speak, Maria Collins stepped forward from her place in the group of scientific advisors. "Excuse me," she said, holding up her tablet, "but I believe you're using a quantum fold drive based on parallel dimension theory for your ships." The alien leader's expression changed. His three eyes widened as Maria explained her work. She drew diagrams in the air, talking about quantum mechanics in simple terms that even the non-scientists could follow. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists in Zextal's group said. "This technology is beyond their level of development." Maria smiled and pulled up more of her research. "Actually, we've been working on similar principles for years. We just lack the materials to build it. See, if you look at these equations." For the next hour, Maria and the alien scientists talked back and forth. She showed them her work, pointing out ways their own technology could be improved. The human leaders watched in amazement as the aliens' dismissive attitude slowly changed to interest. "Perhaps we underestimated your species," Zextal said finally. "Dr. Collins, would you be willing to work with our science team? We find your perspective unique." That meeting changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Maria became Earth's unofficial ambassador to the Confederation. She helped translate their advanced science for human leaders and showed the aliens that humans weren't as primitive as they thought. But not everything was perfect. Maria noticed how the aliens always held back certain information. They talked about peace but had weapons on their ships. They offered trade but kept their best technology secret. Late one night, as she looked at the stars from her lab window, Maria saw more alien ships arriving in orbit. They were bigger than before, with what looked like weapon ports along their sides. "They're not telling us everything," she whispered to herself, "and I need to find out why." The Confederation said they came to welcome Earth into the galactic community. But as Maria watched more ships arrive each day, she couldn't help but wonder what they weren't saying. Humanity might be considered primitive, but she knew one thing: they weren't stupid. And soon, the galaxy would learn just how clever humans could be. Kevin Peters didn't want this job. Studying primitive species was usually boring work. But as he walked through New York City, watching humans go about their daily lives, he felt something different about this assignment. Subject species shows unusual patterns, he recorded in his daily report. Despite their primitive technology, they adapt quickly to our presence. He paused, watching a street vendor selling toy versions of Confederation ships. Perhaps too quickly. His superiors at the Confederation had given him clear instructions: observe and report, nothing more. Earth was classified as a Level 2 civilization, barely worth noticing. But something about these humans kept catching his attention. In Washington, D.C., Laura Martinez sat in her office at the Defense Department, reviewing the same reports over and over. As a military strategist, She had learned to trust her gut. Right now, her gut was screaming that something was wrong. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, pointing at a map showing Confederation ship movements. "They say these are trading vessels, but their patterns match military patrol routes exactly." She had spent weeks collecting data, watching the alien ships move through the solar system. The Confederation called them peacekeeping forces, but Laura saw something else. They were positioning themselves like an army preparing for war. Meanwhile, Kevin continued his observations. He watched human children play with complex puzzle games. He saw construction workers figure out how to use alien tools without instructions. He observed their cities, constantly changing and growing. "These humans," he wrote in his private notes, "they never stop building, never stop improving. It's like they're driven by some inner force we don't understand." One day, Kevin visited a human military base. He expected to see primitive weapons and basic training. Instead, he found soldiers already practicing with simple versions of Confederation technology. They had taken apart a broken alien communicator and figured out how to make it work with Earth phones. "Impossible," he muttered. But there it was. Laura Martins noticed the alien observer's visit to the base. She watched him through security cameras, saw his reaction to human innovations. That evening, she sent a secure message to Maria Collins at the Science Division. "They're studying us," she wrote, "but they're not seeing everything. We need to be careful about what we show them." Kevin's reports to the Confederation became more complex. "Subject species shows concerning levels of military adaptation," he wrote. "Recommend increasing surveillance." But privately, he was beginning to question his own beliefs about human primitiveness. At a local diner, Kevin watched a cook fix a broken stove with parts from 3 different machines. In a school, he saw children learn alien language basics in weeks instead of months. On the streets, he noticed humans already mixing Confederation technology with their own in ways his people had never considered. Laura Martinez gathered her evidence carefully. The Confederation ships were not just watching Earth. They were building something. Hidden bases on Mars, secret stations behind the moon. But why? What were they preparing for? "We need to be ready," she told her superiors. "They're not telling us everything." As Kevin finished his latest report, a priority message flashed across his screen. His hand shook as he read it. Something was happening at the edge of human space, something that would change everything. He looked out his window at the busy city street below. These humans, these supposedly primitive beings, had surprised him at every turn. Now, as he read the warning message again, he wondered if perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Because the storm was coming. And these underestimated humans might be the only ones ready for it. The warning lights in the Confederation's Earth observation post flashed red. The Drachnid Empire, a race of beings that had fought the Confederation for centuries, had broken through the outer defense lines. Their massive warships were cutting through space like angry wasps. John Mitchell watched the alien news feeds from his home in Colorado. After 20 years as a Navy SEAL, he had learned to read between the lines of any situation. What he saw worried him. "They're not telling us everything," he said to his dog Max, who lay at his feet. "Those ships aren't just passing through. They're running from something." In New York, Maria Collins got the same news. The Confederation representatives assured everyone that Earth was safe, that the Drachnids would never come to such a primitive system. But Maria had learned not to trust everything the aliens said. She called Laura Martinez in Washington. "Are you seeing this?" "Every second of it," Laura answered, her voice tight with concern. "The Confederation is pulling ships away from Earth. They think we're not worth defending." John Mitchell didn't wait for official orders. He drove to the nearest military base, where others like him had already gathered. Former soldiers, sailors, and pilots. All of them could sense what was coming. "The Confederation thinks we're too primitive to fight," John told the group. "But that means they don't know what we can do. And that might be our biggest advantage. In space, the Confederation ships moved in complex patterns, fighting a losing battle against the Drachnid fleet. Their perfect formations and advanced weapons weren't enough. The Drachnids were brutal, efficient, and winning. On Earth, humans didn't sit idle. Laura Martinez organized a secret meeting of military leaders from around the world. John Mitchell presented his ideas, ways to use Earth's primitive weapons in space. Nuclear weapons might be old tech to them, he explained, pointing to a diagram. But has anyone ever tried using them the way we're thinking? Sometimes the old ways work best. Maria Collins worked with her science team day and night. They studied every piece of alien technology they could find, looking for weaknesses, finding ways to combine it with human innovations. The Confederation didn't notice these preparations. They were too busy fighting their war, too certain that Earth didn't matter. But they had forgotten something important. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire history. Then came the day everyone had feared. A Drachnid scout ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Confederation ships assigned to Earth followed, following their orders to protect more valuable worlds. They left us, Laura Martinez announced to the Emergency Council, just like we expected they would. But John Mitchell smiled. Good, he said. Now we do this our way. Around the world, hidden preparations sprang into action. Weapons that mixed human and alien technology were brought out of secret bases. Soldiers who had trained in secret moved to their positions. Earth's satellites, quietly modified over the past months, turned their new sensors toward space. The Confederation thinks we're primitive, John told his troops. The Drachnids think we're defenseless. Let's show them both how wrong they are. Maria Collins stood at her lab window, watching Earth's first true space defense fleet take shape. Ships that looked crude by alien standards, but held surprises no one would expect. Sometimes, she said softly, being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. The storm was no longer approaching. It had arrived. And humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what a primitive species could do. The Drachnid ships filled the sky like dark stars. Their fleet was larger than anyone had expected. 50 massive warships pushing through space toward Earth. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Susan Carter watched them approach. They think we'll be easy to defeat, she said to her officers. Let's prove them wrong. Earth's defense fleet waited in hidden positions around the moon. The ships looked rough and simple compared to alien vessels, but inside each one was a mix of human creativity and alien technology that no one had tried before. John Mitchell sat in his fighter craft, leading the squadron hidden behind a field of space debris. They had trained for months for this moment. Every pilot knew exactly what to do. Remember, he said over the radio, we fight our way, not theirs. The Drachnids moved closer, their sensors showing nothing but a primitive planet with basic defenses. Their commander, a battle-scarred warrior named Kraz, laughed at how easy this would be. Then Earth showed its first surprise. Now, Admiral Carter ordered. The space around Earth lit up with hundreds of small nuclear explosions, not aimed at the Drachnid ships, but carefully placed to create a web of radiation and electromagnetic pulses. The Drachnids' advanced shields flickered and failed. What is this primitive trickery? Kraz roared as his ship's systems went dark. John Mitchell's squadron burst from their hiding place. Their fighters, smaller and simpler than Drachnid ships, darted through the chaos. They fired weapons that looked like simple missiles, but carried a surprise inside. A mix of human explosives and alien power cores. The first Drachnid ship exploded in a ball of green fire, then another. The mighty alien fleet found itself fighting an enemy they couldn't track or predict. Impossible, Kraz shouted as more of his ships fell to the human attacks. They are primitives. In her lab, Maria Collins worked with her team to guide the battle. They had studied Drachnid technology for weeks, finding its weaknesses. Now they use that knowledge. Their shields can't handle rapid changes in radiation levels, she reported to Admiral Carter. keep hitting them with random patterns. They can't adapt fast enough. The remaining Confederation ships watched from a safe distance, amazed at what they saw. Humans were fighting in ways no advanced species had ever considered. They used simple technology in complex ways. They turned their own star's radiation into a weapon. Susan Carter smiled as another Drachnid ship fell. "Send in the second wave," she ordered. More Earth ships appeared, launching from hidden bases on Mars and the Moon. They carried weapons that mixed old human ideas with new alien power. Railguns fired at speeds that surprised even their makers. Electronic warfare systems confused the Drachnid's advanced computers. "Retreat," Krazd finally ordered. "Retreat from this cursed system." The remaining Drachnid ships turned to flee. But Earth wasn't finished yet. John Mitchell led his squadron in one final attack, using the sun's gravity to slingshot their fighters at impossible speeds. "This is for doubting us," he said, launching the last wave of missiles. When it was over, the space around Earth was quiet again. Broken Drachnid ships drifted like dead leaves. The Confederation observers sent urgent messages to their leaders. Admiral Carter looked at the victory display with pride. "Send a message to the Confederation," she said. "Tell them Earth is ready to talk. As equals this time." Maria Collins watched from her lab as Earth's fleet returned home. "They thought we were primitive," she said softly. "They never understood that being primitive just means you have to be more clever." The battle was over, but the real changes were just beginning. News of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The primitive humans had done what advanced civilizations couldn't. They had defeated a Drachnid battle fleet. Now everyone wanted to know how they did it. Linda Howard stood in her workshop at the Space Defense Center, surrounded by pieces of alien technology. As the lead engineer of Earth's defense projects, she had a new idea that could change everything. "Look at this," she said to Maria Collins, pointing to a strange device on her workbench. "We've been thinking about alien shields all wrong. They're too perfect, too organized. That's their weakness." Maria watched as Linda connected Earth's old radar systems to alien power cores. Sparks flew, but the machine hummed to life. On a screen nearby, test results showed something amazing. "It's like throwing rocks into a still pond," Linda explained. "Their shields are the still pond. Our chaotic energy waves are the rocks. We don't need to break through. We just need to keep the water moving." In orbit, John Mitchell trained more pilots in Earth's new fighting style. They didn't try to copy alien tactics. Instead, they used Earth's older, simpler technology in ways the aliens never expected. "They expect us to fight like them," he told his pilots, "but we're going to fight like us. That's what they're not ready for." The Confederation finally sent representatives to Earth. This time, they didn't act superior. They wanted to learn. "Your defense systems," one alien scientist said to Linda. "They shouldn't work, but they do." "How?" Linda smiled. "Sometimes the simple answer is the best one. You made your technology too complicated. We just brought it back to basics." Maria Collins worked with both human and alien scientists now. They combined their knowledge in new ways. The Confederation learned that Earth's primitive approach to physics sometimes found solutions they had missed. "Your people think differently," Kevin Peters told Maria. He had become Earth's strongest supporter in the Confederation. "You don't follow the normal rules. Maybe that's what we needed all along." But the war wasn't over. The Drachnids were angry about their defeat at Earth. They planned a bigger attack, with more ships and newer weapons. Linda Howard worked faster. Her team took apart alien ships and put them back together with human modifications. They created defense systems that used Earth's magnetic field as a weapon. They turned the moon into a giant radar dish. "They'll expect us to use their technology now," she said. "So let's surprise them again." Admiral Carter helped plan the defense of Earth. She knew the Drachnids would come back stronger. But now Earth wasn't fighting alone. The Confederation, learning from Earth's example, started changing their own tactics. They made their ships simpler, more flexible. They learned from humanity's long history of warfare. "We were wrong about you," the Confederation leader told Earth's council. "Your primitive status wasn't a weakness. It was your strength. You kept the knowledge we forgot." Maria looked out at the combined fleet of human and alien ships orbiting Earth. The human ships still looked rough and simple next to the alien vessels. But now everyone knew that simple didn't mean weak. "The Drachnids think they can beat us by being bigger and stronger," she said. "But that's not how humans win. We win by being clever, by thinking differently." Linda's new defense system was almost ready. John's pilots were trained for the next battle. Earth had shown the galaxy what humans could do. And they were just getting started. Commander Paul Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his ship, the Star Runner, looking at the stars ahead. His crew, a mix of humans and aliens, waited for his orders. They were about to do something no one had tried before. "Remember," he told them, "we're not here to fight fair. We're here to win." Earth had learned that the Drachnids had supply bases hidden in asteroid fields. These bases kept their war machine running. The Confederation had never found them. But Paul had an idea that came from his years fighting in the jungles of South America. In guerrilla warfare, he explained to his crew, "You don't attack the enemy's army. You cut off their supplies." His fleet of small ships moved silently through space. They looked like broken asteroids, covered in rocks and ice. This trick came from Linda Howard's workshop, simple covers that fooled advanced sensors. Meanwhile, on Earth, Maria Collins and Kevin Peters worked with Linda to track the enemy's movements. They had turned Earth's old weather satellites into a spy network that spread across the solar system. "The Drachnids are creatures of habit," Kevin said, pointing to their supply routes. "They always use the same paths, the same methods. They think they're too powerful to need tricks." Paul's fleet found the first supply base exactly where they expected. The Drachnids had hidden it well, but they never thought anyone would look for the simple things, like heat signatures in the asteroids. "Begin Operation Hidden Strike," Paul ordered. His ships split into small groups, just like guerrilla fighters on Earth. They attacked the base from all directions, using weapons that mixed human explosives with alien power. The base never had a chance to call for help. "One down," Paul reported back to Earth, moving to the next target. Admiral Carter watched the reports come in from her command center. Paul's fleet hit 6 supply bases in 2 days. The Drachnids couldn't understand how their hidden bases were being found and destroyed. "They still think we're primitive," she said to her staff. "They don't realize that primitive means we know how to fight with nothing but tricks and courage." The Drachnid Empire started to feel the effects. Their ships ran low on fuel and supplies. Their commanders argued about what to do. They had never faced an enemy who fought like this. Linda Howard's newest invention helped even more. She had created small robots that looked like space debris, but could attach to Drachnid ships and send back information about their movements. "Sometimes the best technology isn't the newest," she said. "It's the one they don't expect." Paul's fleet kept striking, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. They used old Earth tactics that confused the Drachnids: fake attacks, false signals, and hidden movements. "The jungle taught me that the smaller force can win," Paul told his crew, "if they're smart enough and brave enough." The Confederation watched and learned. They saw how Earth's primitive battle tactics worked better than their complex strategies. Some Confederation ships joined Paul's fleet, learning to fight the human way. Maria Collins received reports from across the galaxy. The Drachnid Empire was falling into chaos. Their mighty fleets couldn't fight an enemy they couldn't find or understand. "We're not just winning battles," she told the Earth Council. "We're teaching the galaxy a new way to fight." Paul Rodriguez looked at the stars again from his bridge. His fleet had struck another blow against the enemy. The primitive humans were showing the advanced aliens that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The war wasn't over, but now everyone knew who would win. The Great Hall of the Confederation glowed with soft blue light. Maria Collins stood before the High Council, the first human ever to do so. The room was packed with representatives from 100 worlds, all waiting to hear what Earth had to say. "A year ago, you called us primitive," she began. "Today, we're here to help shape the future of the galaxy." The Drachnid Empire had finally fallen. Their last fleet had surrendered just days ago, unable to fight against the combined forces of Earth and the Confederation. But it wasn't just Earth's weapons that had won the war. It was their way of thinking. Kevin Peters stood next to Maria. He was no longer just an observer, but Earth's strongest supporter in the Confederation. "I once wrote reports about how primitive humans were," he told the Council. "I was wrong. They weren't primitive. They were different, and different was exactly what we needed." Around the galaxy, things were changing. Linda Howard's simple but clever inventions were being used on thousands of worlds. Ships now carried both advanced alien technology and basic human backup systems. No one wanted to be caught with defenses that were too perfect to work. The Drachnids failed because they couldn't adapt. Linda explained to a group of alien engineers. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one. John Mitchell had become a teacher, showing alien pilots how to think differently about space combat. "Don't just rely on your technology," he told them. "Use your mind. Think creatively. That's what humans do best." Paul Rodriguez's guerrilla warfare tactics were now standard training in the Confederation fleet. "The big guy doesn't always win," he said to his mixed crew of humans and aliens. "The smart guy does." Admiral Carter walked through the New Earth Space Academy, where young pilots from across the galaxy came to learn. Some were from worlds far more advanced than Earth, but they all wanted to learn the human way of fighting. "We don't teach them to be primitive," she told visitors. "We teach them to be clever, to think for themselves, to use whatever tools they have." In her lab, Laura Martinez worked with alien security experts. They had learned that Earth's old military strategies still worked, even with new technology. "The basics of warfare don't change," she explained. "Only the weapons do." The Confederation was changing too. They no longer divided worlds into advanced and primitive. Instead, they looked for what each species could teach others. Earth's seat on the High Council wasn't given out of pity or politics. It was earned. Maria finished her speech to the Council. "We humans may have seemed primitive to you," she said, "but being primitive taught us to be innovative, to never give up, to find ways to win even when we're outmatched. These aren't primitive traits. They're survival traits. And now they're going to help us all build a better galaxy." The council chamber erupted in applause. The vote that followed was unanimous. Earth would lead the Confederation's new Defense Council, teaching others how to blend simple solutions with advanced technology. Kevin Peters smiled as he watched. His final report to the Confederation was just 2 lines long. "Humanity is not primitive. They are pioneers." That evening, Maria stood at her old lab window on Earth, looking at the stars. Ships from 100 worlds moved through the sky, many of them carrying her world's simple but effective innovations. "They thought we were primitive," she said softly. "But sometimes being primitive just means remembering the simple truths that others have forgotten." The war was over. A new age had begun. And humanity, once dismissed as primitive, was helping to lead the way.